Okay, so the first thing that we're always going to want to fill out is who is completing the survey. You definitely want to fill out what county we're in. If you are filling this out online, these little boxes and things like that are fillable. So you are able to complete it on a computer if you want to with your clients. We will want to put in the site or program that we are operating from. And if we are in the city of Wilmington, we want to make sure we highlight that. But if not, we want to put down what other city or town that we are operating in. We always make sure to ask if the individual has been surveyed by a volunteer already. And that should actually say last night. So now I already know that there's something I gotta fix for later. So it will be asking them if they were surveyed the prior night. If they say yes, then they do not need another survey. If they say no, then you go ahead and move on to the informed consent. It's important for you as the volunteer to reiterate this information to the clients, because a lot of times people are afraid that their information is going to be used or it will affect their services. So the purpose of collecting these surveys is to get a better idea of what homelessness in Delaware looks like, so that we can improve services and programs. Participation in the survey is completely voluntary, and they can choose to skip any answer that they want to. That's really important because in my experience, that has been a way that I've been able to engage more people and make them more comfortable with answering questions, is that they can go through and fill out like answer what they want, but if something's uncomfortable, we can just move right over it. The survey is confidential, and that their personal information is not going to be shared. It's only collected for deduplication purposes. So the only reason that we collect name, social, date of birth is that so we're able to tell people apart in the system. But when that report goes out to HUD or when that stuff's reported on, all of their information that's collected is de-identified. So their personal information is not being shared. And that their responses will not impact their access to any programs or services. So most people will say yes, they don't care. If they say no, then this is super, super important. If they say no, you still want to complete the demographic information section of the survey with your observation of the individual. So that will be these two sections here. You will want to, if they were able to tell you where they slept last night, which is kind of a preface for the survey, you'll want to mark that down. And then you will want to, based off observation, fill in as much as possible. So if they're not willing to give you their age, you want to try to figure out, based on what you're looking, what kind of age range they're in, a visible race, visible ethnicity, that one's a little bit harder, visible gender, anything like that. So those are really the only things that we need to be able to do like an observation tool. But that's still really important to make sure that we are counting individuals, even if they do not want to complete the survey. So that's probably the most important takeaway from today, is that please fill that section out, even if they do not want to complete the survey with you. It's okay to collect their information based off observation, even if they say no, they do not want to complete the survey. So current living situation, this will be based off for service location, where they were staying the night prior. So you will be able to select any of these places that they said that they were. And if there is another place that they stayed that was not meant for human habitation, we do just ask that you list that. Then we move through first name, social security number, first name, last name, middle initial, social security number. If they're not willing to give you the full social, then we would want you to at least try to get the last four. Any part of the social really helps with deduplication in the system that we enter the data into. If they do not give you a date of birth or age, then we definitely need you to choose a range that that person might fit into. This is super, super important because if there is no age or approximate age captured for the person, then we can't like include that survey and that person can't be counted. So definitely getting an age range is very important when completing the survey. We just ask whatever race they identify with, ethnicity, gender as well. A new data element that was put in this year through HUD is gender other than singularly female or male. So non-binary, gender fluid, agender, anything like that. So HUD is definitely interested in understanding that a little bit more and definitely accurately capturing that for the count. Again, use discretion when asking these questions and try to complete the survey with as much privacy as possible because we definitely don't want to be sharing anybody's private information with anybody they don't want it shared with. If they're a veteran, that's a pretty standard question. Then we move into history of homelessness. So we want to know if it's their first time homeless, when their current episode of homelessness began. So an episode of homelessness will be in any situation where they've been outside, in a car, in a shelter, things like that. Considering leaving homelessness would be staying with a parent, friend, couch surfing, doubling up, paying for a motel or hotel on your own. So sometimes it might be a little bit hard to capture that information, but as accurately as you can, if possible. We want to know where they were sleeping immediately before they were sleeping in the unsheltered location. So if they were, again, with a friend in a medical facility, anything like that, prior to where they slept the night of the count. We want to know how long they were sleeping in that prior location, and then how many times they've been unsheltered or and how many months they've been unsheltered within the last 3 years. So this would be the amount of times they've been unsheltered or in an emergency shelter, and this would be the number of months total. All of these questions are really important for us to capture what's called chronic homelessness. So this is one of the ways that we figure out who has been homeless the longest and other definitions that help people meet like a chronic homeless status, which is super important for like permanent supportive housing and other housing programs. And then we want to know if they are currently homeless because they are actively fleeing any type of domestic violence, dating violence, assault, or stalking. We move into health and well-being. We just ask if they are living with a disabling condition. It does not have to be officially diagnosed. It can be a self-diagnosis. We really just want to capture anything that somebody thinks is a disabling condition that they might have within that list. We also need to know if the condition that they're living with is long-term or indefinite and preventing them from holding a job or living in stable housing. So there's definitely people who have disabling conditions but are fully functional members of society, and it doesn't impede their ability to live independently. And so we are really trying to grab at the people who are not able to independently live due to their disability. We are asking some COVID-19 questions. So if they have any health conditions that increase their risk or have poorer outcomes from COVID-19, and if they've had access to the COVID-19 vaccination. A new section that we added this year is our youth section for our youth count. So this is to be completed with anybody who is under the age of 24. So it does not need to be completed with anybody 25 and above. This is really to hit at HUD's category of youth, which is 24 and under. So This question in particular, we want to point out, so one of the things that is big with youth homelessness are youth being homeless due to being part of the LGBTQ community. When we met with our youth providers and had a planning session, that was something that was highlighted as data that would be helpful to them. But what we definitely want to make sure that we are using discretion and be making sure that we're not like outing anybody or sharing any information that they might not have shared with anybody else. So please, please, please use discretion when asking this question. And it can be shown to the individual instead of read aloud if you're in a group. So just please be conscious and make sure that we're not unintentionally outing anybody who might not have given their status to anybody that they are around. We ask about foster care, detention centers, if they're attending any school or education and training programs, if they have a high school diploma or GED, and if they're currently employed. So Delaware has a very abysmal amount of youth data when it comes to youth homelessness. So this year we are really trying to make sure that we capture that. And finally, we get to our household section. So the household composition, if it's just one person, then you can go ahead and skip this section, like the section above. If somebody's over 25, you go ahead and skip it. So this is only for people who are staying together in the same location that evening. So it's important to note that households are not just married couples or siblings or anything like that. Anybody can identify as a household together as long as they are staying in the same location that night. So that includes adult unmarried couples. It can include friends that are staying together. It can include like an uncle and a niece, like anything like that. So anybody who identifies as a household, we would want to complete this section with them. So we would observe like what best fits their household composition, who is staying with them that's over 18 or under 18, if this person's the head of the household. Another really important thing to note here is that these surveys need to be completed with every single person in the household. So if you have a multi-person group that you're dealing with and they're all together, each person in that group needs to have a survey, even if they are a youth or a child under 18. The way that we connect those surveys together can be really confusing. So that's where I want to spend some time here. So this section right here is how we make sure we connect people's surveys together. So if we have mom, dad, and kids, mom, dad, and kids are all going to have their own surveys. Kids with permission from mom or dad are going to have as much information as they are willing to give. By no means do we expect minor surveys to be as completely filled out as the adult surveys. But for any of the other adults in the household, we want to make sure that we are including this information. So if we are looking at mom's survey, we would want dad's information here and kids' information down here. If we are looking at dad's survey, we would want mom's information here and kids' information down here. If we're looking at the kids surveys, we would want both mom and dad's information up here and sibling information down here. So that is kind of how we make sure that people are looked at as a household if they are a household. That is generally the most confusing part about doing these surveys. So I want to spend some time here to see if you guys have questions about this portion in particular, and how to complete that in practice. Okay, it makes sense. Perfect. And after that, that's the end of the survey. It is a quick, like 2-pager front and back. So it is pretty easy to move through it pretty quickly. So that is everything that you need to know about that guy. I will go ahead and just share our PIT tips with you guys real quick, and then we can move into like questions and discussion. Okay, so this is our PITS tip sheet. It is generally just goes over the logistics. So we've definitely put that out a bunch of other places already, so I'm not going to go through that. It talks about our COVID-19 precautions. So really where I want to start is the bring with you. So you definitely, to reiterate, you want to make sure you're dressing warm and in layers. You want to have warm, sturdy, comfortable walking shoes. If you have waterproof shoes, that would be even better. So if any of you guys are hikers or campers or active outdoor people, definitely you want to make sure you're wearing your good outdoor shoes that night. You may want to bring a small backpack to carry items like snacks, water, more clothing if you need it. If you have a flashlight or headlamp, you want to make sure that you bring your cell phone fully charged. If you have charging banks, go ahead and bring those too. And the most important thing to bring with you is energy and compassion. A good set of eyes are really important for the visual observations. We have our PIT count do's and don'ts. So do lead with respect for the person and their dignity. Do have a conversation with people you encounter. Do get consent before asking survey questions. Do remember that you may be in somebody's personal private space. Do respect their time, and do complete observed location and demographic information for each person regardless of survey consent. So that's the observation tool. Don't, under any circumstances, take any photos. No photos are allowed at the launch site with volunteers, more than welcome. But as soon as we get into dealing with any clients or any individuals that we might encounter that are unsheltered, absolutely no photos. We are not trying to highlight or exploit their homelessness to the media, even if it's social media. Don't assume that you know the answer to any of the person's survey questions. Don't insert yourself into the person's story. Don't force them to answer any questions they don't want to. And don't prioritize or promise service delivery. One of the biggest things with the PIT is that it is a data collection process. It's a surveying tool. It is not, this particular night and time is not a time to be engaging clients for actual services. It is more than appropriate to leave a card or tell the person that you will follow up with them afterwards, but we are not attempting to do any type of case management during the actual survey count. All of the safety tips here are the ones that we covered at the beginning of the training. They were just reiterated here for anybody who needs them. And then for any questions or concerns during the PIT count, please either confer with your site or your team lead, or you're more than welcome to call me. That is my personal cell. Please don't use it if you don't need to. But for emergencies or very important questions, you are more than welcome to give me a call. All right, and that is about it, guys. Do we have any questions or comments, experiences with the PIT in the past?
I just have a quick question.
Yeah.
Because we'll be doing the survey at our one location. Will you be emailing out the final copy that we can just make copies of ourselves? And then where do we turn the papers into somewhere? Will that be like instructed in an email?
Yeah, so it can be done a bunch of different ways. So I can either print the surveys out here and schedule a time to drop them off to you. We can email them to you and you guys can print off what you need in terms of getting the actual materials to you. In terms of coming to pick up, you can scan and email the surveys. If you have a scanner, you can send them by mail, or we can schedule a time for one of HAD staff to come pick up. So we're definitely very flexible in that, and we will coordinate individually with all of the different partners that we're working with.
Perfect.
Can we complete them digitally?
Yes.
I think I did it. Okay.
Yep. So the version that we sent you is a Word document that has the little boxes that you can just click an X. You might have to add the underline when you go on any of the underlining things, because that's just like an underscore. But yes, you can complete them on the computer if you'd like.
I have a question too. Or does anyone have tips on how to bring up the social security numbers? Like, how do you approach the conversation, like asking for it?
Yeah, in my experience, I am just direct. I be like, oh, can I get your name? Like, are you comfortable giving your age or date of birth? Are you able to give me your social security number? If not, the last four are appropriate. And then I really just reiterate that the name, date of birth, and social security number are really just for deduplication services, and that won't be shared with anybody. Lots of times that really helps people feel more comfortable with sharing it. In my past experience, most people, especially because most people we interact with have been through the drill before, just give it because they know that we already have it. Very rarely have I come up against people who just won't give it to me at all. But yeah, I mean, don't force them, but make sure to reiterate it's private. If they still don't want to give it, that's totally fine.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, no problem. Right. Any other questions, guys? Okay. The last thing I want to talk about is like, I don't know how much experience everyone has with like homeless services or homeless clients, especially anybody we are encountering unsheltered. I do just want to reiterate to take the time to kind of mentally and emotionally prepare for volunteering. I can say with experience, I don't know, it might just be me because I'm an emotional person, but it is the first time I did it, it was a very emotional experience. It's still an emotional experience for me to like be in those situations and kind of stepping into the shoes of people who are living that way. So that is one of my other like biggest advice and things like that is to make sure that you take care of yourself in the process of volunteering for the pit count. Other than that, I don't have anything else for you guys today. So you're all more than welcome to go. And thank you so much for taking the time to learn about the pit and volunteer this year.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Bye, everyone. Thank you.